If you love somebody so much that you couldn't bear to let them go and pass on to wherever, would you bring them back to life? Let's talk about it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of a new movie that just dropped on Shudder for their exclusive film called The Surrender. Now, this is a film that is from a first-time feature director by the name of Julia Max. Julia also wrote and directed this film, and it is essentially about a grieving family. There's a patriarch that dies in the family, and a grieving mother and her daughter risk their lives to perform a brutal resurrection ritual and bring him back from the dead. You got stars Colby Minifie, who was in The Boys. She's like the assistant of the corporation. We also have Kate Burton, who returns to the screen and has been around forever. She was in Big Trouble in Little China. She's Margot.
This is America.
You're not going back there, Margot.
And she was in The Prodigal Son and even the remake of Martyrs and so much more. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed this film, and it's not going to be for everybody in the sense that there's some things that happen in a movie that are indie that some people who watch indie movies are okay with, and some people who watch indie movies who typically watch more mainstream films are not gonna like. I urge you to check it out regardless. If you have a Shudder subscription, definitely give it a whirl. There's some things I'll go over here that won't be spoilerific at all, but I will mention a few things that might detract you from wanting to see it and maybe interest some to want to. But the cast in this movie, I think, is really good. There's a certain air of humor about this movie that Julia injects into this movie, and I think it is kind of a breath of fresh air when it comes to a horror movie sometimes. Sometimes it's good to go the entirely dire route, which, you know, I'm cool with too, but occasionally it's nice to mix it up with a little dose of humor in there that isn't necessarily so on the nose. It's more subtle and more just, hey, I got a dark sense of humor. And clearly Julia does. But that humor may work with some people and it may not for others. So, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where it may detract from what people want. Some people just want that direness. It's in here, but I think that those sprinkled elements of lighthearted levity is kind of, well, dark-hearted maybe. But you know what I mean. I think it's kind of nice and it breaks up the movie a little. Julia, who wrote and directed this movie, has Colby Minifie and Kate Burton, who are mother and daughter, who I personally think have a very realistic looking kind of relationship between each other. There's some things that they've kind of let go over the years that they haven't discussed, that they're arguing and bickering about now. There's arguments that they have with one another that they try to stop in the middle of it because they love each other and hate each other at the same point. It's really well written in that regard, in my personal opinion. Some people may think that that's inauthentic, but to me, that's super authentic. The writing in here, I think, is actually pretty good. Things that actually kind of creep me out. I will say that there was a couple of moments in the film where they used some sound or elicit some sort of jump scare, which didn't necessarily work for me, and I felt like the film was above that a little bit, but that's just my personal gripe. I still think that this movie has an air and vibe about it that is creepy and unsettling in some ways, and the things that these women put themselves through to resurrect their father or their husband is pretty intense too. And there's some really dark ideas that they crammed into this small indie that actually kind of make it feel really big. What they do in the film makes the film feel like it's bigger than it really is, which is a perfect scenario for any indie film, by the way. If you can get the viewer to feel like the movie is bigger than it appears, I think that's amazing, and that means that you're doing something right. Towards the end of the film is where a lot of the changes happen. This is a very strict 3-act structure type of film where you have the intro, the setup basically to the situation, the confrontation in the middle, and then the, conclusion, which goes bananas by the end of the movie. This is going to be one of those movies that doesn't answer all your questions and doesn't lay it all out there for you. So for those of you that don't like to kind of wonder or imagine This might grind at your gears a little bit. It's what you have to do sometimes with an indie film when you don't have a budget to go bananas. Now, this movie starts off with some pretty crazy, stylish body horror in a way right off the get, and then you see what happens all before that, all the way to the end of the movie, of course, which I think should catch your attention. I think it was a really smart idea for them to grab it and put that in the very, very, very front of the movie, but I also think that it may give some people a false expectation into what to expect, even though I think it is a nice taste of what to expect in a lot of ways, because there is some pretty dark stuff that happens in this film, and I really like the ideas that they put into the ritual and things and the outcome of that ritual. It really is pretty cool. If you've ever seen the movie A Dark Song, this kind of has that familiarity about it, only A Dark Song was the entire movie of them building up to the last 20 minutes of the movie. A Dark Song was more ritual based from start to finish. This does have sort of a ritual, but it doesn't really start until the middle of the movie, really. Everything else is just sort of like building the characters and the situation to the point where they don't know what else to do. But yeah, it's not a perfect film, but I am definitely looking forward to seeing what this director does in the future. And I really hope they give Julia the writing and director credits. Like, I want to see what Julia Max can do with more money, because I think we've got some really good movies coming from Julia in the future, and I am excited to see it. I really enjoyed the performances of Colby Minifie and Kate Burton, and some of the creepy stuff that they did. Some of the sort of art design and creature work that they do in this movie is very fantastic. Some of the stuff that they do with the visual effects in this I thought was really creepy and very cool too. But you're gonna have to taper your expectations. This is not Blob 1988, okay? This is a movie that is delving into some pretty dark stuff, kind of like the movie A Dark Song. I think that's a pretty close representation, although it's a very different movie overall. I would give this movie probably like a 6.5 or a 7, and I'm leaning more of a 7 on this one, just because I like what they did with the ideas in this. I like the tone and the quality of the relationship between the mother and the daughter. It's got a few things it's doing differently in a horror movie that I found refreshing, and I really do honestly look forward to seeing what Julia Max does in the future. So I think you should check it out, because I think some people might be higher on this number than me. This is just me kind of settling at where I am right now, but I'm going to give this one another watch by the end of the year just to make sure I know where I stand on it. For now, I say check it out if you got Shudder. It's worth a watch, and you may enjoy it, but you may be a little peeved by the end of the movie. But that's all I really have to say about it. I would love to hear what you think about this. Is this the kind of movie that you get into, like watching a family bring someone back from the dead? There's something dark and kind of crazy about that, right? I would love to hear what you think in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks so much for coming by, guys. And remember, yes, that thing in the closet, it's real. And no, you're probably not going to survive the night. But as always, long live the void.